Hi guys, welcome back to Known Oceans Travel. I'm here today with Graham Merrigan. Graham is here to talk to us with the Sunday series Travel Inclusivity about what it's like to travel with a disability. So Graham, it's fantastic to have you on today.
Thanks for having me, Roma. Thank you. My name is Graham Merrigan. I'm 36 years of age. I'm living with spina bifida. I use a wheelchair to get from A to B. Well, also I drive. I work in IT. Spent a couple of years traveling, in a lot more so in my 20s, early to mid 20s. Did a good bit. I haven't stopped, but it's just hasn't been as exotic at some of the places that I'd been in my early to mid 20s. But keen supporter of football, keen supporter of following the Irish team abroad. So had an interesting trip there in October 2019 to Tbilisi in Georgia, where there was actually zero accessibility for me. So I was raging that I didn't wear a GoPro because some of the hills I had to push, and some of the cobblestones I had to encounter were quite challenging. But I've been involved as well with disability sports for about 10, 12 years. Started up a basketball team with my friend in my area. So yeah, that's me.
Okay. So you said you have travelled a fair bit before, and as you said, in Georgia there was not a lot of accessibility for you. Has it ever stopped you from traveling, or would it stop you going somewhere in the future?
It would probably stop me going solo.
Okay.
Because I would probably need assistance. And as opposed to reaching out to some local person, where a lot of the places that I have been quite friendly. But I suppose it's the embarrassing element. Like if you're going with your friend, or like I did in my early to mid 20s, and a girlfriend at the time, it's a lot different than. I mean, I traveled to England solo before for a day, and it wasn't intimidating or anything, but it's the same language, getting into taxis, going from A to B. It was fine, like, but I don't think I'd do a trip like Georgia, or if I was previously I travelled to Rome and Italy, did Interrail across Italy, south to north. I don't think I'd do that on my own.
Okay. But it was possible to do,
just because
even with
there's a
someone.
reliance on people helping you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. I always find everything is manageable. Everything is. It depends on the individual, and it depends on whether you want to do it on your own or if you want to do it with a friend. So.
And you mentioned that you play wheelchair basketball, was it?
Yeah.
The team. So have you had to travel for like competitions, or what's that like if you're traveling in a group with everyone else over to like international competitions or anything like that?
Well, as a club, we don't have any international competitions.
Okay.
We're a club, so we're in an All Ireland league, and it's up to everyone to get to the venues individually. Now,
Okay.
there are a couple of players that would rely on public transport, but a lot of the time when you're playing in places like Galway or Kerry, it's just not feasible because you're getting to train to some kind of
Back
remote
arse
area,
end of nowhere.
perhaps. Yeah, back at the end of nowhere, and I didn't want to be rude saying that, but
Yeah, not at
um,
all.
but you'd end up, one of our guys would end up getting a train to the back arse end of nowhere, as you said, and then it's a further 50, 60 minutes. So there is a huge expense if you're not driving as a disability sports star in this
Yeah.
country.
Okay. Yeah, I know even
Now, we
from
do have a couple of international players that have been abroad. They've been to Lisbon, they've been to Prague and stuff in the last couple of years. And again, it's a great expenditure to those individuals unless they can get a sponsorship.
Yeah.
But again, there's volunteers that go, maybe 3 or 4 volunteers, able-bodied people as well that can give assistance. So
Okay.
nothing's free.
Yeah, no, never is. If somebody was in a wheelchair and was hoping to fly to like Australia or something, would you have any advice for them?
Well, I lived in Australia for a year about 10 years ago.
Okay.
I did research in as far as public access toilets, and it felt that some areas of Australia were good because Sydney hosted the Paralympic Games in 2000. So there's a requirement that if you host the Paralympic Games, you do have to have a certain standard of accessibility in that city. So
Yeah.
Sydney, my time in Sydney was quite good in that you didn't really have to think about planning ahead. There was always toilets. There was always wheelchair accessible toilets in pubs, restaurants, and stuff like that. And I lived in Brisbane for 6 months, and that was a bit of a headache in terms of buses, public transport, because you did have to book the buses 24 hours in advance. You would have to ring a station and say, "Look, I'm going to be here at 8:10. Can you make sure that?" I ended up just getting the train all the time
Yeah.
into the city where I worked. But in terms of advice, I would definitely say do it. And I suppose it would always depend on the individual's disability as well that I would look out for, because I do have requirements in terms of toilets. I would need some privacy to, like, in a back room. Couldn't
Yeah.
just go in the corner in the bush or whatever,
Yeah.
if you need be. So like, yeah, I would definitely tell them to do their research. Anywhere I encountered, I was in Australia for 12 months, and then on the way home, I did Southeast Asia for 3 months, with an ex-girlfriend and two friends. And whether it be them assisting me to get onto a boat or to get onto a bus, and the locals were always there, secondary kind of, particularly in Vietnam. Geez, they couldn't do any, like, it's one Vietnam, Japan, and New Zealand. The people are just the three countries. The people are just the best I've ever experienced in terms
Okay.
of just friendliness and helping out. Like, if anyone in a wheelchair was to go to Tokyo, it can be intimidating because everything's quite small, but it is very, very manageable. And the locals would go out of their way. Like, we came off a train station. We just landed in Narita Airport in Tokyo. We hadn't a clue where we were going. And locals, seeing that we were confused, but they let us out of the train station and they literally walked us to the next train station that we needed to be to get to where our hostel was. Now,
Okay.
it took 30 minutes of that man's own time to do that for us. And I've never
Yeah.
experienced that in any other country. Like, I never experienced people stopping to give you directions to make sure you're okay, but not
Yeah.
bring you to make sure you got there safe and sound. But I would
Yeah.
definitely, like, my basketball team, say, of a couple of guys in their late teens, early 20s, strongly recommend traveling to them. I would 100%,
Yeah.
because it's an eye opener and life experience, and everything is manageable. Like,
Yeah.
if I can do 3 months in Southeast Asia, where some of the countries there, particularly Cambodia, are at the bottom of the poverty line, um, you know, the only thing that you do worry about is toilets. And when you're
Okay.
doing when we were backpacking, and we were going on night buses, because it was cheap. It's like €5 to go on a night bus to get to a different country. You would be stopping off at these designated areas where I'd get off. My friend would get me a wheelchair ready. He'd lift me off. I'd go pushing, looking for a toilet. I'd be directed to a toilet. Then you go into the toilet and just a hole in the ground. And you're kind of
Okay.
going,
That's no good to you, like.
it's absolutely no good. Like, no, it's absolutely no good whatsoever. Like, it was manageable, and I'll keep it private in how I did it, but it was manageable. And the three or four junior players off the team, they will know what manageable is all about as well, by me
Yeah.
saying it's manageable in terms of toilet function and stuff like that.
Okay. So you said there that there was a few countries that have been very accommodating to disabled people. And you were saying Georgia. Is there any other countries that have been very inaccessible when it comes to?
Attitude wise, America is inaccessible in terms of their verbal communication. Their
Okay.
infrastructure is the best in the world. Um,
Right.
but they're still using words like handicap. They're still, if you're going to a tourist destination, and you're with your friend, or you're with your mother or your father or whatever. My family, we've been to Orlando a few times over the last couple of years, and if you're going up to a roller coaster, the person will talk to my parents above me
Yeah.
about, can he do this, that, and the other.
Yeah. Instead of
So
asking you, like.
instead of asking me, like, I mean, as I said, their infrastructure is 100%, but their attitude is still lacking a lot. Like, I went with a girlfriend years ago to New York, and it was quite embarrassing when you're going to the Rockefeller Center, you're going to the Eiffel or the Empire State Building. and the tourist operators are looking at her. Can he do this? Can he do that? And she's like, well, he can talk. Ask him.
You can ask
So
him.
that I've been going to America for years. I've been to Vegas 3, 4 times, Orlando 3 times, New York, and it's the same everywhere. Everywhere is you don't have to worry about a restaurant, a pub, you don't have to worry about anything accessibility wise, but
Okay.
you are going to face comments that will annoy you.
Yeah.
Me and my friend Ross went to Georgia. Um, I didn't think too much about it simply because it was a football trip. I was doing a double header. I was flying to Georgia, and then I was also on the way back going to watch Ireland play in Switzerland. So there was
Okay.
2 matches over the course of, I think we might have been Wednesday to Monday, perhaps. And
Okay.
I figured like I'm in Georgia, we're going to be in the hotel a lot. We're
Mm.
most 3, 4 star hotels that I've stayed in around the world are always accessible.
Yeah.
So I didn't give it much thought in terms of research, but just one of the days that we had a bit of downtime when you're just exploring the city and you're kind of going, Jesus, this is. And then the actual consulate, the Irish consulate, was just making sure all the Irish fans were okay. So he was just going through in and out of pubs, and he came over to me and said, how did, if you don't mind me asking you, how are you getting around? And I said, yeah, it's a bit of a shit show. He said, yeah, there's literally no consideration. The curbs are too high,
Okay.
cobblestones everywhere. So there's literally, it's just not on their radar in Georgia.
Yeah. Even though there's probably disabled people there as well,
Yeah, but as he walked away, I checked the Georgian Paralympic team, and I don't think there was one wheelchair user on the team.
Okay.
Yeah, now it's a small team and it's very much probably in its infancy. But there was definitely there was no wheelchair users, so I was kind of going, that makes sense because curbs are just so high. But it was
Yeah.
lovely. I was only there
Yeah.
for 2 or 3 days, so
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it's it was hard, but I suppose it's good to know that it's one on
yeah,
that list. If there was
yeah.
anything for somebody like yourself, a wheelchair user, in terms of like planning a trip, the actual travel itself, the accommodation, the activities, is there anything that instead of you having to conform to the world, in what ways could the world conform to you to be more accessible? It's a big question. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a big one, but it's a good one because the world isn't built for us. So
Yeah.
I mean, how can the world conform to us? By having more ramps, by having more lifts, by having more. Ireland needs more public wheelchair toilets.
Yeah.
It needs toilets and bars, restaurants. I shouldn't in my own country have to ring a restaurant ahead and say, look, I'm coming in for dinner. Do you have a toilet? No, we
Yeah.
don't. Okay, book and cancelled.
Yeah.
If I'm in my job, if they're planning a night in the city, I have to tippy toe about, and if they haven't considered me, I'll just say, oh no, I can't go that night. Or if I know that the venue isn't accessible, oh no, I can't go that night.
Yeah.
Those things are. I'm 36, and ever since I've been an adult and going out into the city and going out drinking and clubbing or whatever, that's always been a concern.
An issue, yeah.
Yeah, it's always been a concern.
Okay.
They can do better with, I suppose the airlines in terms of the topic being traveling. Virgin Atlantic, when I've traveled with Virgin Atlantic to the States, they bring my chair on board the aircraft with me. And they
Okay.
store it away. They store it away in a big cabin. Because obviously
Yeah.
the Virgin Atlantic planes are huge.
Yeah.
But any other planes like an Airbus or whatever like that, it just goes, the wheelchair goes, it leaves you, some bloke takes it, manhandles it and puts it in
Yeah.
the luggage. And
Yeah.
there's certain times where you're on the plane and you're about to land and you're kind of going, Jesus, I wonder, I need to have sight. I need to look out the window to see if I seen him putting the wheelchair in where the luggage is,
Yeah.
And
Instead of just fucking
I
it
just
on,
think
like.
instead of just fucking it on, but I mean, I think airlines could be better with that process. And like, with no disrespect to people with kids, but chairs are more expensive than buggies.
Yeah.
People that
And
make chairs, it's a niche market. They make good money off manufacturing wheelchairs. So it's if I remember landing in New York one time, and instead of bringing my wheelchair to the door, I had to get into an treble oversized wheelchair. And because they decided to put my wheelchair out with luggage in the carousel,
Yeah.
and I was never more humiliated in all my life getting off a plane not in my own wheelchair. So
Yeah.
things like that, they can conform and they can be better, and they can make things a lot better for us in my view.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions I wanted to ask, because we discussed it on another episode, that it's like if you're using like a walker or something like that, like why does it get put in the luggage? Why does it not come on board with you? Because at the end of the day, like you need it and it's a part of your functioning. So
Yeah.
why, like that is great that Virgin Air do bring them on board for flights like that, which
Yeah.
is really good to know. And for
It's
like,
not a policy though. It's not a
okay,
policy with Virgin. I chanced my arm one time, down to Orlando, I think it was, and I
okay,
chanced my arm, saying, "I don't suppose you could." I was charmed, like trying to charm the
yeah,
air stewardess. I said, "Don't suppose you put my chair on here?" She was like, "Is that an Irish accent?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Of course I can." Like she was like, "My mother and father were Irish. I'm Scottish." And she
yeah,
goes, "I'll look after your chair," and she did. And then
okay,
during the flight, she was just making sure I was okay, making sure enough drinks, water, or food. And I said to her, "Could I ask that going forward every time I fly with Virgin?" She goes, "Absolutely. And don't let any of them say no, persist." She says, "Because
okay,
there's plenty of room. There's plenty of room on board this aircraft."
yeah,
So I was like, fine. So
grand,
that's what I did. So it's not an official policy. So it
yeah,
would be great that if airlines could conform, and like even if an airline isn't full, my wheelchair is so small and compact that you could take the wheels off and sit the frame of the chair on a seat and put the
okay,
wheels on under the seat. I don't
yeah,
see why they couldn't do that. Like on a plane that has 7, 8 free seats. You know what I mean?
yeah, and it's a
It,
guarantee.
it, it would get rid of it would get rid of a lot of anxiety for us wheelchair users when we're traveling. If you're on
Yeah,
an 8-hour flight and you're not, like, you're worrying a lot of that 8 hours, wondering if they actually put the chair, wondering if you're going to show up in your destination, and if the chair is going to be there or not. You know what I mean?
yeah. Can I ask, if say you're on a long haul flight and your wheelchair is underneath with all of the luggage, if you need to go to the bathroom, is there something on board? Is there like a wheelchair on board so that you're able to go up and down to the bathroom,
There's
or?
a Yeah, there's an onboard on long haul flights. There's an oil chair, so
Okay,
you just hop on the oil chair. The air hostess kind of pushes you to the toilet, and you just
yeah,
transfer over the toilet. It's
okay,
not ideal. I
mm,
Sometimes if I'm on long haul flights, like say America's okay, but let's say if I when I was long haul to South Africa, when I went to South Africa before, or Tokyo or Australia,
yeah,
um, I kind of dehydrated myself, which isn't a good thing
wow,
to
okay,
do. But I did it just to be comfort, just have a comfortable flight, because the toilets you couldn't swing a cat in it. Like
yeah,
when I'm in a toilet, I need to be in my chair and I need to transfer over.
yeah,
It's a process, and planes are just too small.
yeah. So this is my last question and my favorite question. After the lockdown, where is the first place that you'd like to go?
Oh, me and my friend were talking about this, and um, I want to go back to Tokyo, because
Okay.
I did Tokyo 10 years ago.
Mhm.
We went to Australia for the year, and we wanted a week's break, because the plan was to go over to Australia and work for this first 6 months
Yeah,
and travel for the second 6 months instead of the other way around.
yeah,
And we asked the travel agent, "Would you pick us somewhere a bit different? We don't want to go to Thailand on the way over. We don't want to party that much. We
yeah.
just want a city that we've never been in." So we rang us back and said, "How does Tokyo feel?" And
Okay.
I only spent 7 days there, but it was just the people, the food, the architecture, the everything. It was just absolutely sensational.
Yeah,
And I'd love to. I'm not saying that I'm definitely going to go, but I would definitely love to go to Tokyo. Definitely
yeah. Okay,
love
it's
love to
good.
go back.
Yeah. shame Jack's not on this one because that's his like number one place to go is Japan. So
See,
yeah.
I've been to Tokyo. So the actual answer to your question is I'd love to go and do the bullet train from south to north.
To north, yeah.
Yes, south to north Japan, I think would be sensational.
It's part of our big backpacking trip in 2023, which we'll be planning on this. But yeah, that's
Lovely.
part of it. I think we're doing a month in Japan. That was a compromise for Jack. Yeah, we got to do it properly. He said if we're going, we're doing it properly.
My cousin went on her honeymoon for 3-4 weeks and just absolutely adored it. She's into her Buddhism and stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah, so she adored it. I'd love to go to South Korea as well.
Yeah, South Korea is my one. Yeah, that's where I want to go. So we're going to do that beforehand, I think. But
brilliant. So jealous.
Please God, if COVID's gone. But Graham, thank you so much for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And I think, I know I've definitely learned a lot. And I'm hoping that this has helped other wheelchair users for their own travel plans. If you guys want to see more of these kind of videos, we do the Sunday series on a Sunday, and you can subscribe. And if you want to get notifications as soon as we go live, there's a little bell down below, and just give us a thumbs up because, it gives us that bit more motivation. So we will see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.